The NBA held their first televised All-Star draft with LeBron and Giannis picking their respective squads. LeBron picked first, snagged Kevin Durant for the second year in a row. Giannis grabbed Steph Curry with his top overall pick. And with his first pick of the reserves, LeBron selected Anthony Davis. Bit of a theme there. Here's how that all played out.
With my first pick in the second round, I'm going with Anthony Davis.
You sure you want him to be your teammate?
I'm very sure of that.
Isn't that tampering?
No. Shots fired, and you're up.
Tampering rules does not apply on All-Star Weekend.
All right, Nick, what'd you make of what you saw in the All-Star draft?
All right, first of all, credit to the NBA. Last year was the first year they did a draft. They're like, no, we're not going to release the order. We're not going to do it on TV. Guys' feelings are going to get hurt. And then you had two of your most charismatic players in the entire league, and LeBron and Giannis, doing it with Ernie Johnson, who's the best in the business at what he does. And it was great. Yeah. It was great television. It was fun. It got you more excited for the weekend. Now to the actual picks. Giannis had an interesting strategy, which was, like, he took Chris Middleton is the first pick of the reserves because that's his teammate.
Yeah, that makes sense. You got to take the homie. You got to take the guy. You got to take the guy. You got to
eventually. But I don't think LeBron was itching to take Middleton early. But regardless, like Giannis said, I want to take guys who it's their first All-Star game because they're going to be more motivated. Giannis had such a poor draft. I think they made him trade. They made a trade where LeBron traded Russ to Giannis because they needed a better player on Giannis's team. It was funny to watch.
To me, it kind of reminded me of Jimmy Butler when he took the backups and was beating up on the starters. Like, Giannis is saying, I'm the best player now. I'm getting ready to prove it to y'all. I'm getting ready to draft all these other guys and be able to dominate the All-Star game.
But what stuck out to everyone is LeBron's first pick's Kevin Durant. He's a pending free agent. His next pick was Kyrie Irving. He's a pending free agent. His next pick was Kawhi Leonard. He's a pending free agent. And then his first pick in the second round, the reserves, is Anthony Davis. He could trade for him. The next pick, the second round, was Klay Thompson. He's a pending free agent. Then it was Damian Lillard. He was on the trade block briefly. And then Bradley Beal was also on the trade block. Yeah. Of the players LeBron picked, you have 8 of them are guys whose names have been attached to the Lakers. So LeBron...
Sounds like a toxic environment.
Yeah, toxic environment. And it reminded me of your guy, Coach Cal. Always recruiting, man.
Always.
Let these guys play with me. Let me put my arm around them.
Spend a couple days with them. Absolutely.
Because Harden's averaging 42 a night, and Harden
was the 7th.
He was the 7th pick because Harden's on a long-term deal. LeBron's like, this can't do nothing for me. So, and I also thought it was funny. They traded the trade, like I said. Russ went from LeBron's team to Giannis's team for LeBron's guy, Ben Simmons' clutch client.
To me, this was another moment, another half an hour that the NBA just snatched from the viewer, from the sports. What would you be doing? They just snatched another hour, and they are making headway that they're part of the news year-round now. It's a credit to the NBA and their front office. Last year, they were so wrong in that. Like, now they're having fun with it, so it was good to see.
And I thought Keta, our producer, made a good point before the show, which is if there's anything the NBA can take from the NHL to take this a step higher, the NHL does something similar, but the players are all out there drinking beers. The guy who comes in last gets a truck for it. If in between the slam dunk contest and the three-point contest, the day before the game, you had all 24 of these guys standing at midcourt, probably drinking red wine because it's the NBA and not the NHL, and you had them in an in-person draft, I think it would take it to another level. And that Saturday night All-Star stuff that has kind of lost some of its
I got something for you and Keta, both of y'all. Zip it producing. Produce your own show. The NBA got it right last night.
All right.
Don't add it. You guys don't mess it up.
Just try to improve it a little bit. Okay, that was great.
It goes against what Durant said. We do care about things that are not necessarily on the court in basketball. The fans love it. They appreciate it. And you're right. The NBA
and Beal was the last pick, and he don't care.
Right.
Bradley Beal knows he's an all-star.
All right. While the Anthony Davis trade to the Lakers didn't happen before the deadline, there were a number of other wheels and deals which did. The Raptors made the biggest splash, acquiring 3-time All-Star Marc Gasol from the Grizzlies. The Bucks traded for Nikola Mirotic in a 3-way deal with the Pelicans. And don't forget the Sixers dealing for Tobias Harris on Wednesday. In short, the Eastern Conference muscles up, as I like to say. CC, how does all this change the balance in the East now?
Well, I'm going to tell you something. The playoffs, I don't know if you've watched the Eastern Conference playoffs, the last. 8 years, totally different. It won't be anything like you've seen because that first round, there could potentially be an upset. But let me tell you, come that second round, it's going to be knockdown, drag out. And it's not going to only be just playoff basketball. It's going to be the type of basketball that changes franchises moving forward.
Correct.
Toronto, I mean, they're all in this year. Milwaukee, I believe they got the deepest roster. Man, Philadelphia, I mean, they're starting 5. Do they not have the best starting 5 or starting 6 players? Yeah. And Boston is going to have something to say. If they're not successful, Kyrie potentially could leave. So not only are all 4 of these teams very, very similar, all 4 of them are trying to get better, and we're trying to get better at the trade deadline. So I'm looking forward to it. Most important, I'm looking forward, Marc Gasol, seeing him with Toronto, seeing how that roster and seeing how he plays, because his overall playmaking, his passing, his ability, how does he blend in with that team? That, to me, I'm excited to see.
Yeah, I think it was really fascinating that thus far this year, the Bucks and the Raptors have been a tick ahead of everyone else in the East all year long. And both those teams said, you know what? We're not satisfied. The Raptors made a big move, trading away DeLon Wright, C.J. Miles, and Jonas Valanciunas, which they had to bring in Marc Gasol, who he's still a good player in this league. He can still defend a little bit. He's a very good playmaker, and he is one of the best culture guys around. The Bucks, they could have stood pat, said, man, we have the best record in the NBA. We might have the best player in the NBA. No, we're going to go ahead and go out. They traded 4 second-round picks. They said, forget second-round picks. We're going to be drafted. Those are going to be in the late 50s anyway. And they add more length and more shooting in Mirotic. And we saw what the Sixers did a few days ago in adding the best player that anybody added, maybe of anybody across the league at the deadline aside from Kristaps. Certainly the best healthy player in Tobias Harris, where Cece's absolutely right. I can't remember a last time in either conference where once we get to the second round, all 4 teams, it's going to be, remember the Final Four of the NFL this year. We were saying, man, nobody's better than 30% to win it all. Nobody's worse than 20%. Right. In the Eastern Conference this year, you can make a case, a strong case for any of those 4 teams. Boston won the trade deadline in a way because Anthony Davis didn't go to the Lakers. But when they have been behind these 3 teams basically all year long, they've ticked ahead of Philadelphia this week, to see all of them get better while Boston stands pat, that's tough because they're not going to catch Toronto or Milwaukee. They're just going to try to fight off Philadelphia for that 4 seed.
That's I was going to talk about Boston. Does it leave them, and how big of a disadvantage does it leave them now when you see the top 3 teams make moves and they sort of stood pat?
Well, Boston had the most talent. They also they were waiting on chemistry. And the way they've played basketball since the middle of January, there was really no need for them to make a move. Nick put it right. They won by AD is still going to be potentially available for them in the summer. Now they have more options, but their best option is to win. Because if they win, their chances of getting AD go up because they're able to keep Kyrie.
Well, and that's something that for 3 of these 4 teams, that's where C was talking about how important these playoffs are going to be. But on Boston, I think they were smart, by the way, not to make a trade. Their issue is not they don't have enough talent. It's, man, Jaylen Brown's a little upset about his minutes. Gordon, they've got so many quality players that they haven't yet fully figured out what the rotation should be. But aside from the Bucks, who are pretty locked in moving forward, we'll see what happens with Chris Middleton. We saw Giannis trying to, hey, I still love you, man, when you're a free agent this summer. The Raptors, I know Kawhi has been adamant he wants to get to Los Angeles. Making the NBA Finals can change people's minds. So the Raptors, a big part of their future could be determined by how well they do this summer. I've talked about Boston and Kyrie. If they make the NBA Finals, and Philadelphia is trying to keep Butler and Tobias Harris, if they make the NBA Finals. So all of these teams, yes, making the finals is a huge accomplishment. Nobody in the conference has been able to do it for a decade unless they've had LeBron on their team. But there's more at stake than just this year.
And we all should learn from Paul George last year. We thought Paul George was going back to the great state of California. And if he hadn't gone to OKC and gone to battle with Russ, him and Russ developed a chemistry. Like, we should learn from that maybe a superstar's arc gets changed because of the chemistry and inside that organization. That could happen to Kawhi.
On the flip side, and this is not just with Kyrie, if there's a second-round exit, with maybe Kawhi going into the playoffs. If the Raptors catch the Bucks, they get the 1 seed. They're looking like they're going to go to the finals. He might be leaning, I'm going to stay. And then they get bounced in the second round. He's like, nope, this was, I always said it was a rental.
Right.
Too cold up here in Canada anyway. I understand there's not a ton of intrigue about who's probably going to win the title. But making the finals is a big deal. And I believe Milwaukee is oddly positioned to throw some problems of all the teams at Golden State if they get there. I think Milwaukee would have the best player on the court. They have almost unprecedented length. And so you can make a case that any of these 4 teams could actually give the Warriors a better NBA Finals than we saw the last couple of years for a Cavs team that was a 1-man band last year and a 2-man band a couple years ago. The Eastern Conference playoffs could be more compelling the Western Conference playoffs this year. And all those teams were focused on getting better when last year so much of the narrative was who's tanking. All these teams were like, no, we want to win right now. That's good to see.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, what did the Lakers' thrilling win over the Celtics last night mean for their playoff hopes? That's ahead on First Things First.